let's get into Don Lemon. That's actually very gross. Nobody wants to get into Don Lemon. Let's talk about Don Lemon. There's a difference between being a journalist and being a criminal. There's a difference between documenting and participating. Do you remember when Jake Paul, I forget exactly what he did. It involved going through a mall and they were breaking stuff and taking stuff. And he had it documented and he posted it to the internet. And then he says, I was just documenting the riots. I forget exactly what it was, but something along those lines. I'm like, it's on video where you're joking about taking stuff. That's no longer journalism. You're participating in the activism. Yesterday in the news, there was a group of agitators, Don Lemon Church, a group of agitators storm a church and interfere with church services, which is a crime, by the way. This is MAGA. Where is this from? Independent. It's always MAGA's fault. Republicans pounce. MAGA calls for Don Lemon to be arrested and under FACE Act after Minnesota church protests. Broadcaster sparks outrage with live coverage of anti-ICE demonstrations at city's church in St. Paul as activists interrupt service to demand justice over the killing of Renee Good. MAGA activists. I mean, it's not just like people with half a brain. It's MAGA, and it's their fault for expecting justice to be dished out against Don Lemon. And I think it will, actually, at this point. You know, you do have to wait. They're not going to barge down and arrest him the day later, although I guess they could have. We're going to get to Harmeet Dillon and her statements on this. I think Don Lemon will face charges. Where he goes and depending on the jurisdiction, we'll see. But bottom line, it's MAGA's fault for getting upset about it. It's not the fault of the ICE protesters who interrupted church services. MAGA activists are calling for the arrest of journalist Don Lemon over his part in a protest at a Minnesota church on Sunday, in which demonstrators interrupted its services to oppose ICE's presence in their state. The group stormed into the city's church, St. Paul, demanded President Trump's federal ICE immigration forces leave and to call for justice for Renee Good, the 37-year-old mother. Yeah. Lemon, an independent broadcaster since his departure from CNN, was interviewing one of the participants during the live stream before they entered the church. He then followed the group inside as they chanted ICE out and accused the pastor of collaborating with the agency. Okay, so that's what happened, and let's get to the videos right now. It's going to blow your freaking mind. You want to talk about how to deal with something in a manner that is going to allow this man, the pastor, to righteously say that he was the victim of their aggression. This is how you do it. Don Lemon goes in there and interviews two people. At least I saw an interview with two people. Where was it here? That's the one with the church. No, I want to get the one where he goes and interviews two people on the outside. And we're going to get into some other beautiful things. Is this it here? Here we go. Look at this. Don Lemon says it's uncomfortable and traumatic for Christian worshipers fleeing the church after agitators storm in, but that's what protest is all about. He's an activist journalist participating in protests. Should be arrested.
This guy here, look, hugging his kid. And you know, I imagine it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here, but again, careful, it's very slippery right here. Yeah. It's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here, but that's what really, careful, please, really so slippery. Thoughtful. Not kidding. That's what protesting is about. And so
well, and oh gosh, hold on a second, I gotta find this. I still hear it in the backdrop. Here we go. Sorry.
But again, careful. It's very.
Yeah, close it down. All right. So that's him saying it's very slippery. It's traumatic. I'm not sure if I have the interview of him with the guy on the outside, but I have the short clip of him with the pastor. You look at the bewilderment on the pastor's face. He's like, "How the hell are you doing this?" This is Don Lemon. Don Stinky Finger Lemon. Don't ever forget the accusations against Don Lemon. Dropped, but the legend lives on. Don Stinky Finger Lemon interrogating the pastor after they've interrupted the service through the protests. And it's like Kanye West taking the mic from Taylor Swift. Like, all right, I'm going to let you finish, but now I want to interrogate you and then claim that I'm just being a journalist while actively participating in interrupting church services, which is illegal.
What do you think of this? I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship. So,
But there were folks who will.
That's what, I have to take care of my flock.
Okay, but listen, we live in there's a constitution in the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
Does Don Lemon not know the limitations of that First Amendment right to protest? You don't get to interrupt religious services, and you're going to find that out, Don.
We're here to worship. We're here to
look at his face. Look right. It's like, I can't believe this guy is for real. Should I be scared? Here.
Freedom to assemble and protest.
We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world is Jesus Christ.
I want to be very respectful. Please don't push me, though.
We're here to worship Jesus. Yes. That's why we're here.
I'm going to be very respectful. Don't push me. He's trying to get away from your stinky fingers, Don Lemon.
The hope of the world is Jesus Christ.
I want to be very respectful. Please don't push me, though.
We're here to worship Jesus.
Yes.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why we're here. Okay. That's what we're about.
Do you think Jesus would be understanding
we're about
and love these folks?
We're about spreading the love of Jesus.
But did you try to talk to them as a
no
Christian?
one is willing to talk.
Okay.
I have to take care of my church and my family, so I asked that you actually would also leave this building.
You don't want us to
unless you're here to worship. Unless you're here to worship.
I'm always worship. I'm a Christian.
We're here to worship. We're here to worship. Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
That's Don Lemon, people. I love it. You know, the last resort of the scoundrel is to, I guess, claim to be a Christian while doing perhaps the most unchristian thing, which is interrupting services and then purporting to be a journalist while doing it. First Amendment rights. Let me give everybody the link to that tweet. Loink. But it gets even better. Harmeet Dillon was on with Benny Johnson. I always get mixed up between Benny Johnson and Benny Thompson. And they're talking about FACE Act and other charges to be brought. I won't play the entire thing, but I'm going to play some of it. Listen to this.
We will pursue charges in this case. I see various crimes that have occurred. Exactly what they are, I'm not going to flag, but the FACE Act has been mentioned as one of the predicates there. In other cases, the Biden DOJ used the Klan Act conspiracy charges tacked on to the FACE Act in the case of protests outside abortion clinics to bring much longer sentences. So there are a number of tools available to us. Who funded this? What else? What other crimes may have occurred? Was there a use of the wires or the mails in preparing for this event? Did anyone cross state lines to do this? All of those are potential predicates for additional federal charges.
I mean, I've just pulled up the Klan Act because this is the first time that I've heard this mentioned. This is a act that was passed in 1871, correction there, to combat the Ku Klux Klan and protect African Americans' voting rights, especially the Enforcement Act, which is known as the Force Act.
Now, by the way, I know as a matter of fact that Barnes and I have talked about this in different contexts. The FACE Act, Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, though they say mainly for reproductive health clinics, also exists for places of worship. Then you got the interference with religious worship, civil rights violation under the Ku Klux Klan Act, 1871, addresses conspiracies to intimidate, deprive people of their rights, including religious freedoms. Holy hell. I'd love to know what Don Lemon's advanced knowledge was. So there are laws that were clearly broken. The only question is going to be whether or not Don Stinky Finger Lemon was actually just following them in or actively collaborating with. And then once you get in there, even if you're just documenting, it's necessary that it's qualifying as interfering with a religious service when you're literally interrogating the pastor and then trying to lecture him on Christianity because Don Lemon is a Christian as well. There's so many things wrong with that.
So here's some of the information on screen. Would you mind breaking down for us, because we have just read the FACE Act and how this is an affinity to the FACE Act, an obvious and egregious demonstrable violation of the FACE Act because they were entering a place of worship, harassing and threatening. We just played a video of a bearded man, who was threatening to attack the Christians that were worshiping there. So it seems like an obvious FACE Act violation. But the Klan Act here, it is on screen. First time I've heard it mentioned. Can you unpack this for us, Harmeet?
Yeah, the Klan Act is one of the most important federal civil rights statutes, and it goes back to the time when President Lincoln emancipated the slaves, and yet the southern states, Dixiecrats mainly, were refusing to give them equal rights. And in fact, that you had sheriffs and you had law enforcement harassing the newly freed slaves. So the Klan Act is a law that makes it illegal to terrorize citizens, to violate their civil rights, to get together and conspire to violate the civil rights. It is often used against law enforcement. But
we can pause it there. There is a very, very deep irony to the fact that Don Lemon, a man who is half black, I mean, he's definitely half black, half white. We'll focus on the half black part, that he might face prosecution under a law that was intended to curb the KKK's intimidation of black men, black women, black people in America. That now a black man going into a church and interfering with, I mean, I presume they weren't all white in the church, but they were definitely Christians, interfering with their ability to pray and worship and claiming journalistic privilege in doing it. He was on with that awful, I was going to say a very bad word, but I won't. This woman whose name I want to forget, and I think I did forget it, and I'm not, Welch, Jennifer Welch, damn it. I call her Jennifer Wench. He was on with Jennifer Wench, and this is what he had to say.
And there's a certain degree of entitlement. I think people who are, in the religious groups like that, it's not the type of Christianity that I practice, but I think that they're entitled, and that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy. And they think that this country was built for them, that it is a Christian country, when actually we left England because we wanted religious freedom. It's religious freedom, but only if you're a Christian and only if you're a white male, pretty much. And so, yeah, I absolutely 100%, but it's an intimidation tactic. And, I said, I don't understand how I've become the face of it when I was a journalist. I do understand that I'm the biggest name there. And I'm also, as I was on with my producers this morning, you and Kylie talk all the time. My producers were saying, I said, how did I become the face of this? And my producer said, John, you're a gay black man in America.
No, how did your face become the face of it? You stuck your face in it. By the way, I had to fact check myself in real time. Don Lemon identifies as a black man. He must be a biologist, but his ancestry includes mixed heritage, as his maternal grandmother was biracial, black mother, white father, with French, Scots, Irish roots, meaning his ethnicity is not half black, but is significant African American and European ancestry, making him mixed black and white descent. How did his face become I don't know, something about interrupting church services, interrogating the priest, the pastor. And then, my goodness, how did I become this? Woe is me, because it's a question of privilege. Imagine the privilege when you have legal protections to pray without interruption. And then we have more. I was pulling up all his face looks like what movie is it where like they have their soul sucked out of their face, and so that they become this like there's a look. Mark Cuban, Rosie O'Donnell, the other one there, Katie Couric. Are those glasses? I mean, maybe it's the glasses. Maybe he's got those Google glasses. Let's hear what he has to say here.
MAGA administration and the fake news MAGAs are losing their mind over something that's not even true. So let me just make it clear, because this assistant attorney general, I don't know, something Hammett.
Harmeet Dillon, you dumbass so-called journalist. By the way, just like a tip for everybody out there, no one ever really wants to be looking up your nose when you're talking. It's a comfortable position to do this and talk to your camera when you're recording. Nobody wants to be looking up your disgusting nose with your stinky fingers near your nose and your mouth, Don Lemon. Let's keep going. Harmeet Dillon.
Dillon or whatever. So
or whatever.
I had no affiliation to that organization.
Oh, okay.
I didn't even know they were going to this church until
okay.
we followed them there. We were there chronicling protests.
Mm-hmm.
Once the protest started in the church, we did an act of journalism, which was report on it and talk to the people who were involved, which included the pastor, members of the church, and members of the organization. That's it. It's called journalism. First Amendment, all that stuff. For all of you people who believe in the First Amendment, absolutist, there you go. So why don't you talk to the actual person who is in charge of the organization and whose idea it was to have the protests at the church before you start blaming me for stuff for which you have no idea.
You know what the beautiful thing about the internet is? It's forever. And your interviews of one of the congregants leaving, your interview of the pastor after the interruption to the services, it's good. We'll see. You'll have your day to defend yourself, Don, because I do think charges are coming against Don Lemon, and it could not happen to a better stinky finger, pervert, lying propagandist. I just wish he was on Twitter so that I could continue needling him. But alas, he is not. And that's all we have to say about that. Now we're going to go over to our vivabarneslaw.locals.com for the after party.